I am Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susie.
And we're paranormal specialists who live in the most haunted city on earth, Savannah, Georgia. Every day is Halloween in our line of work, so join us as we spin true tales of haunts, murders, and disturbing Savannah history. I'm Madison.
I'm Chris.
And welcome to the most haunted city on earth. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of The Most Haunted City on Earth. My name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susie.
And I'm JT Timmons.
And today we have another ghost mail for you.
Woo! You've got ghost mail.
Oh, boy. All right. All right.
So before we get into that, though, JT, you got some parajunkies?
I do. I got some parajunkies to thank. New parajunkies. Whoop, whoop.
Whoop, whoop.
Okay, so let's see. I would love to thank Martha Tarr, Amanda, Brandy W., Sarah Tremblay, Jerica Barcelo, Brianna, Massa Richard, David Hernandez, Melissa May Thayer, and Laura Bennett. Thank y'all so much for becoming Parajunkies, and we are excited to get you more radio play episodes. All content is always ad-free for y'all, and live streams, and private live streams, public live streams, ad-free live streams, all the live streams, discords,
all the things.
Oh yeah. Also, special shout out to Don Nielsen and Ashley Werner for running our fan base Facebook page.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, if you didn't know we had a Facebook page that's specifically for fans of the listeners. You do not have to be a Parajunkie to be a part of this one. So if you want to interact with other Parajunkies or listeners to the podcast, you can find us under the Most Haunted City on Earth fan base.
Yes.
On Facebook. So yeah, definitely go join that because Dawn and Ashley are definitely working very hard to keep that active. So
yeah, they're working really, really hard, and it's pretty dope. And just wanted to say thank y'all.
Absolutely. So let's dive on in.
All right.
Started out with some Faye.
Oh boy, Faye Daddy out.
Oh no. I do need a Faye Daddy shirt though.
Daddy. Well, I've made it. I've made the Faye Daddy shirt, and it'll be on the Parajunkie only store.
Okay, great. When do I get a Faye Daddy shirt?
I'll order you a Faye Daddy shirt.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Cool. So this one is from Alexandra Mikado, and she says Faye rings and other things.
Yes.
My favorite type of things.
Yes, she is a Parajunkie, very active one.
Yes. Chris, Madison, and JT, y'all just listening to the live stream and wanted to update y'all on a few things. I was the girl on TikTok. This is really throwing it back. I was the girl on TikTok who thought she was dating her ex-boyfriend's doppelganger.
Ah, yes.
We remember that story well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm not dating him anymore, and not because of similarities of my ex. He just ghosted me. Well, I'm sorry to hear that.
Although this is the appropriate place for ghosted people.
Right. Not counting this as paranormal. I live in New Orleans, and I was moist in the beginning of May and walking on a major street, the median, neutral ground, and I saw white-capped mushrooms in a circle. Faye ring.
There you go.
Correct.
Classic
Faye ring.
In NOLA?
Yeah, there's Faye everywhere.
Absolutely.
There's literally Faye everywhere.
Daddy.
I mean, okay, but there are. And if you see a perfect circle or what looks circular made of mushrooms or anything that is a natural doorway looking threshold arch or something like that, that's a Faye ring. Don't step in it. Don't walk through it. That's it.
Pretty classic.
And
it's worth noting that the Fae dominate Eurocentric cultures. Mm-hmm. As you start to clash, you won't find as many of them, or they will actually be identified as something else, which makes it difficult. Because if you go into the Fae and you go into Turn and Og and all the constructs of the Fae belief structure, they do change by regionality, but cultures bring them. Cultures carry them in their bags. You show up in a new land with your bag full of beliefs.
phase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they follow, and they will, inhabit any area where there are people who are susceptible to the belief structure.
Okay, so real quick question. We'll go on. We'll go on with the story. Jake, father of 3, he's 44, lives in Orlando, owns a lawnscaping business. Mm-hmm. There's a Fae ring. He has no idea. He doesn't even know what Fae is. He just mows right over it.
Mowing over it is actually
probably the better thing to do is to destroy the Fae ring.
Stepping inside the ring is the trap.
Okay.
Like coming at it from the side and getting rid of it, not as detrimental.
Yeah.
Right,
it's more so.
clarification.
So it's more so like picture it like if you saw a bear trap in the woods. Would you want to stick your foot in that? No, because it would clamp down on you.
Yeah,
and
that's
now
usually what happens.
Yeah, it would clamp down on you, and then you have a bear trap on your foot. Now, picture that with a Fae ring. It's kind of the same concept. Now they have access to you. They have caught you. You've landed in their trap. That is what they wanted.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Anyways.
No, that's yeah. Mm-hmm.
Moving on.
Anyways, my pup Chancleta, which that's a really cute name for a dog. Which
Alex is dope, bro.
Yes, which is Spanish for flip flop, by the way. But almost went in, but I yelled no.
No Chancleta.
There happened to have been 3 circles in that same median. The third one was more oblong, but still cool. Photos included, as well as my puppers. The rings have since
I was gonna
dried
ask
up.
Alex. You know.
Oh, whoa. That's a big one.
That's huge. And it's around a
tree.
Yeah.
No way.
Of substance, which could be a home.
This is another one. That looks more like a little Fae village.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then here's the other one. That definitely looks more like a Fae ring. And this is Chancleta.
Oh.
The cutest little meatball.
Yes.
I want Chancleta.
I want Chancleta.
I
We want your dog, Alex.
She's really cute.
She's really cute.
Savannah's a very dog-friendly town.
Yes.
Come visit. Bring the dog.
her with you.
She can be our guest.
There will be some scrunches.
There will.
Yes.
There will be little boops. Anyways, yes, those are on the topic of the Fae, though. The reason for the message, yes, I think you were absolutely correct in assessing that was a Fae ring, although that oblong kind of mishmash of mushrooms, that sounds more like a little house village of sorts, which isn't uncommon to see, especially near Fae rings. If you go to the fairy pools in Scotland, it's crazy to see because you can see all these mushrooms growing up the sides of the hill, and it looks like a little town almost of mushrooms. It's very weird, and I pointed it out to JT.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, that's where they live. And it's cute. But anyways, so my Marilyn story. I've also had ghost experience when I was 19 years old, and I had just graduated from high school, and my dad got me a ticket to go to Los Angeles to meet his family, extended Cuban family. So I went and I had fun as a 19-year-old can. It was pretty fun. I then got a room at the Roosevelt Hotel, which is very creepy if you have not stayed there. It is beautiful, but oppressing, on Hollywood Boulevard. This hotel used to house major stars of the 1930s, 40s, and 50s. I remember watching a ghost travel show, not a hunting show, and apparently people would hear Montgomery Clift's trumpet at night, but he's obviously dead. Also, Marilyn Monroe stayed there before she made it big, so I'm a Marilyn fan, and the room she stayed in was under construction, so we couldn't stay in it. But her mirror was displayed across the way from the gift shop in the hotel. I go down to the gift shop and see the mirror. Lore has it that you can see Marilyn's head floating around. So I have my disposable camera. That was weird.
What?
Did you not hear that?
The rattle.
No.
The door rattling?
Nope.
And now clicking.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, you know.
Okay. Well, anyways, so I have my disposable camera and I'm taking all the pictures, every corner and even behind it. And then I feel this light touch on my arm going up my arm, and then it stopped. Marilyn Monroe touched me. At least I hope she did. Then after I take the photos and have my moment with Marilyn, I leave and enjoy my last days of vacation. Then I look for my camera to develop those pictures and it's gone. I lost the dang thing. I don't know if it was being irresponsible or just it disappeared in general. I'll never know if I got evidence of Marilyn Monroe in the mirror. This is my second time sending ghost mail, and I hope to send hometown haunting story from Sterling, Virginia when I get more information on a certain suburban legend. Thanks so much for sharing my stories and pictures. You guys rock, and the content is amazing as always.
Thanks for always supporting, Alex.
Yes.
Now here's
bring Chunkleta, please.
an interesting question. Could it have been Jane Mansfield?
Ooh.
Did Jane Mansfield stay there? Because Jane Mansfield was decapitated. And Jane Mansfield was famously a knockoff of Marilyn Monroe. A lot of people compared the two of them. She was a blonde bombshell sex
Why was
pot
she decapitated?
in a car wreck.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, hereditary
She went
style.
under
no,
like
not
a
hereditary
tractor
style.
trailer, I think. But yeah, she
Wow.
famously, she was decapitated. And if you're seeing a floating head in a mirror, that's the first thing I thought of. Because she would look like Marilyn Monroe from, the neck up. Because I think she was capitalizing on Marilyn's success by being a sexy blonde bombshell of that era, of Hollywood era.
Yeah, dang. All right.
But wasn't Marilyn Monroe found dead in the Roosevelt Hotel? Am I wrong about that? I feel like I remember that being a story.
I thought she was at home.
I don't know much.
Hold on.
Yeah,
it's been a long time since
we have the interwebs.
I'll Google it.
Okay,
I'll
yeah,
Google
look it up.
Yeah.
Look it up real quick, because...
But it's funny because I wonder if mirrors are going to be our
theme
our
of
theme.
the... But, it's the Roosevelt Hotel in general is just really creepy because everything's red in there. Have you stayed in the hotel?
I've not stayed there.
Okay.
I'm familiar with it, but I've never actually visited it.
Well, I have, and it is super freaky. Everything is dark, like blood red. All the rooms just feel dark. Like you can feel how many bad things have probably happened in these rooms, bad situations happening,
Let's die at her house.
Okay, then I'm wrong. But yeah, because I remember Marilyn having that attachment, but I, for some reason, associated her death also with the hotel, which personally I think would be a lot creepier. But anyways.
But I was going to say, it seems like she stayed at the hotel prior to taking off.
Right.
So the very wistful, hopeful Marilyn, and not the drugged out and troubled Marilyn.
Sure.
Yeah, it looks like a drug pen in some of those rooms. Like it really does.
What a dark underbelly our entertainment history has of taking gross advantage of people and plying them with alcohol and drugs. And,
right. Especially in LA. I mean, that's just classic LA behavior. You see that a lot with the hotels there. But hopefully it was Marilyn Monroe for your sake. If you're a fan, I hope you did get touched by Marilyn.
Yeah.
Before history is written, it's played. Before it's frozen in time, it's fought one shift at a time. Before it's etched in silver, it's carved in ice. What happens next will last forever. The Stanley Cup Final on ABC and ESPN Plus begins Saturday.
But next story comes from Scarlett. Visited by a boy ghost in Cambodia.
Ooh, cool.
All right.
All right.
Oof.
I like this.
Oh, yes. All right. So, hello there. Thank you for taking the time to read my story, and I hope you enjoy it. I have a firm belief system about life after life and ghost spirits that is a great importance to me. Many spooky and supernatural things have happened to me, and I'd like to share my first ever encounter with the supernatural with you. In 2013, I was volunteering in an AIDS orphanage in the Cambodian countryside. Wow. The land on which the orphanage was built belongs to a pagoda and was previously a hospice for AIDS victims in the 1990s and early 2000s. Before it was converted into an orphanage for the remaining surviving children, the land therefore has an abundance of spiritual energy and has been the place of pain, suffering, and death for many decades.
Wow. Our listeners are so cool.
I know,
they
right?
like
Yeah,
send
their
stuff
stories
in.
are
They're
amazing.
like, I mean, that's so wild.
It is wild.
Like, good for you.
But we arrived on Saturday and began our volunteer duties immediately. All was going well, but I was really struggling to sleep at night. With hindsight, this was mainly due to the fact that we were in the middle of the dry season in Cambodia, the hottest month of the year, but I also felt so uneasy in the room we were sleeping in. I shared a dorm room with my friend, and there were 2 single beds, both pushed against the wall on opposite sides of the room, and I slept in the bed in the corner diagonally opposite the door. It got to Tuesday, and in my sleep-deprived state, I mentioned to my friend that I didn't think I could stay any longer if I wasn't sleeping, as I couldn't be of much help. That night, as usual, I was really struggling to doze off. At some point, I must have fallen asleep as I suddenly woke up really abruptly, feeling the urgent sensation to pee. As I started to come to and get ready to get out of bed to go to the bathroom and relieve myself, I was completely struck down with fear. To this day, I've never felt a fear like this. It is indescribable. I could feel someone lying down in my bed next to me. I was lying on my stomach with my head turned to the side, so I was looking at my friend, and the person in my bed was lying in between me and the wall. I could feel the weight of them. They were small and lying on their back with their head turned to face the back of mine, and I could feel their vision burrowing into the back of my head so intensely. I lay there for what it felt like a lifetime, trying to muster up the energy to leap out of bed and out of the door. Finally, I did, and I ran to the bathroom. After using the toilet and composing myself, I returned to my room only to find the bed empty, with no sign of any intruders anywhere. I was so scared that I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. The next day, I moved around in a total haze, trying to decipher what had happened, but it was all too much to understand. That night, after the rest of the volunteers had retired to their dorms, I was left alone with the founder of the hospice/orphanage, Wayne. In my desperation to shed some light on what the fuck happened, excuse me for
It's
the
okay.
language, we'll bleep it out, but had happened to me, I decided to tell Wayne about my encounter the night before. I started by saying, "Wayne, I think there was someone in my bed last night." To which Wayne immediately replied with, "Oh yes, that probably was ... Now, unfortunately, I have forgotten the name Wayne mentioned, but I do remember the first name was with a K and the second with an S. So for the sake of the story, I shall use the name KS. So Wayne tells me, yes, that was probably KS. To say I was shocked was an understatement. Who was KS, and how did Wayne so adamantly know that he was the person that was in my bed? At this point, I would like to add that I was not into ghosts and supernatural stuff at all. I had no interest in it, and I currently did not believe in the afterlife in any form. So, of course, I asked Wayne to please elaborate, and he proceeded to tell me the story of this young boy who was born HIV positive in a small village in the countryside. Due to poverty and misinformation about AIDS, he was shunned by his family and community and left in a box at the side of the road as a baby. Luckily, someone found him in time and took him to the orphanage, where he received medication and learned how to walk again, and more importantly, how to trust people. Wayne said that he was a relatively healthy child who loved sports and had a positive future ahead of him. One day, he contracted a bad case of diarrhea and had to go into hospital to be put on a drip, just as a precaution. Wayne took him and got him settled and told KS that he was going to pop into the city to run some errands and that he would be back within a few hours. But Wayne ended up taking far longer than a few hours, and when he returned around 4 hours later, KS had passed away.
Oh, man.
Wayne was shocked and confused, as were the doctors. There were no determinable reason as to why he had died, as the drip had ensured he wasn't dehydrated. Wayne then told me that he believed KS had willed his own death, as he had thought that he had been abandoned by Wayne, and the pain and trauma that had caused him effectively killed him. So after digesting this information, I turned to Wayne and I asked him, "So why did KS come into my bed last night? Why did he visit me?" Wayne says he believes that KS wanted some attention and recognition. As 3 days after KS's passing, another young boy named Chang had died at the orphanage. Chang had a strong relationship with Wayne and other volunteers. And Wayne admitted that Chang's death had dominated the attention of everyone, and KS's death had been forgotten. I also have a crazy story about Chang too, but that's it for another day. Wow. After this intense and mind-blowing conversation, I decided to head to bed, not really knowing what to expect. Now, what happens next is a bit of a blur, but I vaguely remember feeling a presence in the room with me at some point in the middle of the night. I remember stirring and sensing someone standing in the room by the dorm door. This time, I didn't feel that surge of dread and unfathomable fear, but I felt like this presence was feeling very shy and sheepish. Still, I was very spooked and shut my eyes as tight as I could get them, and I said in my head, if that's you, KS, I see you, I acknowledge you, and you are loved. I don't remember what happened next, as I must have drifted off to sleep pretty swiftly. After that occurrence on the Wednesday night, I slept so soundly in that room, and I was never visited by the ghost of KS again. Please find attached some photos of Wayne in the crematorium, and also a photo of Chang and an excerpt talking about Chang's passing. All files are taken from a book written about the orphanage a few years after I volunteered there. The book is entitled In a Rocket Made of Ice by Gail Guttrad.
What a great title.
I know, right? Peace out, Scarlet.
Wow.
So I'm assuming this is Wayne in the crematorium.
Wow.
Which is very frightening that they have all the children's faces on the wall. I'm assuming this must be Chang.
Wow.
And then here's the excerpt. Okay. Very interesting.
Well, goodness gracious! Yeah, Debris will have all the photos that she sent in up, and you can read the excerpt and all that.
That's a wild story.
Wow.
Well, a wild story.
But it's also not unreasonable to believe that, these children would be sticking around, especially because that land is, like you said, known a lot of tragedy, a lot of hardship. And so children's spirits tend to stick better. And we've talked about that plenty of times. And especially if this child in particular had severe abandonment issues, it makes sense that he would stay around and want to feel acknowledged by the people who he trusted the most.
I feel like Wayne needs to forgive himself.
Right.
That's a lot to carry.
Yeah.
It is. It is a lot to carry. I mean,
it is.
It's unfortunate that the child went through all that, but, it's not his fault that the child died.
A lot to carry.
Exactly.
Especially in that profession, and where so many children seem to have passed. And that's another thing, is when you're in a place where death is so prevalent, you find that the energy itself is, a ground zero for supernatural activity. We talk about hospitals a lot, where people suffer, or where there's a lot of death that is acknowledgeable. That the chances are high. It's about opening that door between worlds. And if it's a place where death happens regularly, then the door is never closing. It's creaked open to that point. So yeah, it's what a tragic place. And Cambodia
really
is a relatively tragic country, given Pol Pot and Khmer Rouge wholesale murder of genocide, and that's of recent memory. Yep. So, there's a lot of woe and a lot of blood, and what a tragic situation.
Truly,
overall.
and especially with small children
children.
Who are going through a really horrific illness. I can only imagine how sad And
I think you had it right with the abandonment issues. I think that's where potentially residual haunting has.
Well, the hooks,
kind
yeah,
of-
absolutely.
yeah. That's what has kept that residual haunting.
I don't know if
possibly
it's residual,
Well, I
though.
said possibly intelligent haunting around, versus another child that might have died and just is not there.
Sure,
right? The ghost is not there. So I think that there's that level of when you're alive, what could keep you around, and I think abandonment issues are like tier 1.
Well, yeah,
something like
exactly. Not feeling, because a lot of times, especially with hospice, you'll hear people saying like, "Oh, my loved ones came to pick me up," like, and things like that. But if you're a child of a family who literally left you in a box, I can't imagine how much family he would be close enough with or have that type of relationship with where he would start to see that family or want to or trust to go with those people. So I could totally see that being like the perfect type of person to stick around as an intelligent spirit, because
And to seek it out at the place where people cared for.
Right.
And, and to seek out like the new person, the new energy, and say, will you stick by me? Will you acknowledge me? And then, of course, the fact that, and oftentimes is the case, you can talk to spirits. And when you do, just that act of acknowledgement oftentimes soothes their restlessness. Just by saying, I acknowledge you, I see you,
I felt a little bit of that in Washington, Georgia.
Yeah.
Where Madison was talking to those little girls, and they were just like, they were kind of happy to be.
Oh, absolutely.
You could tell, like their responses were positive.
Right.
And it will satiate them for a period of time. They may quiet it down for a period of time through the act of that. So like, if there's a spirit in your house or you have a suspicion, you can always just be like, I know you're there. I'm just walking to the kitchen. I'm getting a glass of water. You don't have to live with the fear of it jumping out at you, because a lot of spirits, what they want is acknowledgement. They want to participate in life. And if you can acknowledge them, they feel participatory.
And also, I think it was important to note too that you had mentioned that when Chang had passed, the death of KS had been glossed over almost.
It got overshadowed by
exactly. Yeah. And I could totally see if it's already a child with severe needs for attention and things like that, when your death is glossed over and you feel forgotten, that's going to amp up the insistence, on being acknowledged and having that connection again. So it makes sense that he's the most active, but I'm so sad for him.
It's very sad. That's a very sad tale.
Yeah.
Very sad.
But all right, we've got one more,
y'all. Thank you for sending that in. That was honestly
that was a really cool one.
That was unbelievable.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Kroger worth it every time. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
All right. And then this next one is 2 mini ghost stories, ? It says, from Kyla. Hey, y'all. My name is Kyla. I've been listening to you guys since the beginning, and this has easily become my favorite podcast to listen to while doing chores around the house. I've always loved listening to other people's ghost stories, but have never wanted to experience anything personally. However, these 2 stories I have may be the closest I will ever get to experiencing anything paranormal. And if that's true, that is fine by me, in all caps. Also, sorry if these aren't as spooky as most of the stories you get. They have just always stood out to me as a little odd. First story happened when I was a teenager. My sisters and I were spending the night at my dad's. His apartment was in one of the oldest cities in our state and has a reputation for being home to hippies and witches. My sisters were sleeping in the living room while I slept in my dad's room on the floor. His apartment was on the second floor and wasn't very big. Every room was connected, and you could easily walk through every doorway if you had walked in a big circle. The way I was laying had the top of my head in the direction of the kitchen. I had a hard time sleeping, so I stayed up watching some TV while everyone else was snoozing. When I finally tried falling asleep, I could hear clicking or ticking in the kitchen. At first, I thought it was our dog's claws clacking against the kitchen floor, but I looked and he was asleep on the floor next to my dad. I then thought it might have been a clock my dad could have had in the kitchen, but every time I popped my head up and looked towards the kitchen, the sound stopped. When I put my head back down, it wasn't long until the sound started up again. After doing this a few times and not being able to figure out what was going on, I just shrugged it off. The next morning, my younger sister had said she heard a man talking in the night before while she was trying to sleep. I asked if it could have been me watching TV, but she said no. My older sister told her that it was most likely someone she heard outside because the windows were cracked open. But the way she said it and kept trying to convince our younger sister to take it as at face value and move on, I could tell that that wasn't the case and that she might have heard it too. My second story happened when I was about 21 and just moved to Virginia with my husband. It was our first apartment together and had chosen to move into this old and small apartment sight unseen. My husband had moved in first while I waited until I had finished school. He had informed me that a block away there was a small cemetery. Not gonna lie, my first thought was, oh God, this is how it happens. We gonna have ghosts, please no. Nothing had really happened though. That was until after living there for about a month, I had my first ever experience with sleep paralysis. The first time it happened, I remember being in bed, not able to move or speak. I looked over at the doorway to see a man crouched on the floor in my room with his back to me. His whole body and clothes were a grayish green. He was wearing a trench coat and, you guessed it, a fedora. He was kind of...
But he's crouched?
Yeah. Never heard it crouching.
That's a new one.
Although,
add that to the
classic
hat man.
sleep paralysis demons crouch on your chest.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of tales of a demon creature that is crouched. As a matter of fact, there's a famous painting.
There's that painting.
Yeah.
Of the hag. Yeah.
Yeah. Of
like little demons on a woman.
Yeah.
Oh, that one. That one. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were referring to the Gullah painting.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty famous Gothic painting of an entity.
Yes.
Crouched. It's like a little goat-legged
Yes.
cherub, actually.
Creepy.
Anyway, back to the
But
story.
yes, add that one into the Hat Man book, I guess.
Crouching Hat Man.
Crouching Hat Man.
The Crouching Hat Man.
He was kind of rocking back and forth like Gollum over here with a fedora, like.
Also interesting. The gray-green is
Right?
interesting to me as well.
But once he knew I had noticed him, he had never turned around. He immediately stopped and slowly stood up and started backing up toward me. Absolutely not.
That's
Not facing you. That's interesting.
That is.
Yeah.
I was so freaked out because I thought this was real and didn't know what sleep paralysis was at this point. This would happen often, each time something new awaited me. One time, I could feel something invisible climb on top of my chest and slowly try to pull the covers over my head. Oh, God. Another time, I could hear people in my bathroom, which shared a wall with my bedroom, talking about me and how I knew that they were there. Another time, I heard my husband walk in the door, put his keys down, and tell me an excuse of why he was home so early. I started to learn the signs of when I would start slipping into these episodes and try my hardest to fight them and stay awake. And they always happen in the morning. Interesting. I started to expect that this was my life now and to live with it. That was until we moved out to a different complex in a different part of town and the sleep paralysis stopped. I haven't had another episode since, so all that paired with the fact that there was a cemetery not even a block away has me really thinking the two may have been connected somehow. Sorry for the long email. Thank you guys for all you do. Stay spooky, y'all. That's horrifying.
I love that story. I don't think it has to do with the cemetery at all, just personally. Just
Yeah,
'cause,
well,
cemeteries aren't the most.
It does
haunted.
seem
Like,
location.
I think there's something else. going
Location
on.
centric, because if you moved away and that stopped, that's pretty good indication that is
Something to do.
That's
yeah.
not generally how sleep paralysis works.
No.
It's not location. And the fact that you only experienced it there. You didn't experience it before then, and you didn't experience it after then. That kind of seems to suggest that it was the place,
Right.
Yeah.
which then brings about what was in the place.
Right. I mean, it sounds
what
like a
was
portal.
there.
It sounds like a
Well, and that's not impossible. either.
smorgasbord of ghosts.
Well, it's the fact that it seemed like the spirits, because she said that she heard them talking about her and how that she could see them. That sounds to me that these entities have a relationship of some form. So it could have been, somebody previously, you said it's a really old apartment complex. So somebody could have opened something up.
Absolutely.
Maybe left something behind, which is not impossible. An entity that was attached to somebody else who lived there liked the spot and knew that they were
And it
gonna-
brings about the concept that sleep paralysis is a method of connection,
Right.
but not exclusive, in sense of one of the entities is able to put you into sleep paralysis while other entities kind of argue over
Right.
what to do with you while you're in this state.
Or like,
The fact that you have these different experiences, the crouching hat man, the voices in the next room, the thing on your chest, they all seem like different entities. They all seem to have different modalities.
right. They're like, oh, Paul, quit putting her in the sleep paralysis. We just want to look
hold her
at
there, hold her there, hold her there. I'm going to back up. Beep,
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 beep. Back me up, Paul. But yeah, no, that's super creepy. And the imagery of it too is just
very
frightening.
Very frightening, very scary.
Almost like something was like, I'm just going to parade as Hat Man, but I do not operate in the same modality as Hat Man. It's
Well,
odd.
and that's just the concept of what Hat Man looks like is a person who's trying to obscure themselves, wear a hat, wear a coat with collar, make sure that they can't see you. And the fact that he didn't turn around, that's a big one. There's a lot of classic, you can only see the back of entity stories. And there's also you yourself, if you turn your back on certain entities, they obscure. So,
all right.
interesting.
Very interesting. Well, thank you for sending that in.
Yes.
We do have time for one more short story. So this one's actually going to be called Ghostmail, Native American Lesson
Yay.
from Monique. Now, hey there. I absolutely love your podcast, and I am so happy to finally be a parrot junkie.
Yay!
Thank you, Monique, for
And it was
joining
that
us.
Monique.
Yes. I am working my way through all the episodes, so y'all are on my commute, or y'all are my commute comrades to and from work. The experience I was going to share with you happened about 5 years ago, back when I was still living in Ohio. It sure sounds like it.
But it's been going on too long.
It's going on way too long. That was a ridiculously loud rumble. They didn't hear it because of compression.
Or it was a buffalo stampede, maybe.
Yeah, that's it, babe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Totally.
Or the Fae.
Those
All right.
Savannah buffalo.
Let's
Well,
go ahead and jump on in. dude.
Anyways,
Yeah.
it could have been the Fae. Anyways. So, this happened about 5 years back when I was still living in Ohio. Here's a little backstory. The Ohio Historical Society, now known as the Ohio History Connection, has an adventure passport of sorts that takes you all around the state to check out different historical sites. My friend and I would typically use this as an opportunity to take day trips to escape the city, do a little learning, and find new breweries. Sounds like a good time.
That sounds like a good time.
One day, they were working, and I decided to fly solo. I ended up at Flint Ridge, Ancient Quarries, and Nature Preserve. I picked this spot because it was a nice day and they have some nice walking trails. When I arrived, I went directly to the museum to check out the exhibits and get a trail map before I headed out. When I got outside of the museum, there was a handful of families with young kids giggling and having a grand old time. This will be important soon. Once I got past the families, I started on my way. Mind you, the trail I was going on, the quarry trail, is a loop in less than a mile. I've included a map below. I got 75 to 100 feet, maybe more, onto the trail. I was far enough away to lose sight of the museum, but could still hear the families clear as day. I love shiny things and saw a rock that caught my eye. I also love shiny things. I am also a fellow crow. Caw. It was a piece of flint, hence the name of the location. So I crouched down to get a better look at it, and I wasn't planning on taking it. I just wanted to admire it. So I got down, picked it up while I was squatting, then I put it back down right where I found it. When I stood up, I was completely disoriented. The air was eerily still and heavy, and I couldn't hear the families, and I didn't know where I was. Again, this is a loop trail, and I wasn't far from the starting point, but could not seem to figure out where I was. I instantly began to panic and started to walk towards what I thought was the mouth of the trail. But I was still incredibly uneasy. After a few more steps, everything went back to how it was. It was like a light switch was flipped. I could hear the families again and no longer felt disoriented. Maybe I got up too fast and experienced their head rush, but I don't believe that was the case. I should have known better than to touch anything, but my curiosity got the best of me. Was a Native American spirit trying to teach me a lesson, or did I stumble into a portal? I have no idea. What I do know is that the feelings I experienced that day will stick with me the rest of my life. I hope y'all enjoyed my long-winded story, and thank you for taking the time to read it. Yeah, and she sent a photo of the map of the trail. So it's this loop right here. It's literally a loop. Yeah. It is a circle, and it's only 0.7 miles. So not a big trail at all.
What do y'all think?
Sounds like you might have hit a time slip.
Right.
You might have
a time slip?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, what's that?
So a time slip, and there's a street in London where apparently it is rampant. People have this experience a lot. It's just basically when you inexplicably find yourself in another time. In London, I think the time slip classically takes you like to the 1800s. Like you go down this alley, and all of a sudden everyone's dressed in 1800s wear. There's horses and carriages and all.
Dang,
of a sudden,
I want to go that time slip.
And then
right?
It's fascinating, but something as simple as like touching an item that had been there for a long time or doing things like that can initiate it. But the description of like the air quality being different, of everything stilling and not being able to hear anything, it's possible that you were just taken to another plane. You just made that sidestep into that kind of realm. And much like Fey rings, little things can be put in your path that if you touch them, move them, take them, you are initiating this kind of thing. So, and I have heard stories of people like taking something from a place and then having terrible experiences until they brought the thing back.
Right.
So it's possible that it was a trap, and just the picking up and putting it down gave you that little bit. But if you had taken it and left with it, you might have been
worse off.
Much worse off.
Well, it's interesting because something similar has happened to both JT and I at one point in Forsyth, where there have been occasions. Now, JT and I used to live off of Forsyth for like literally right off the park. So we would walk through the park often to go to wherever it is that we were going. And there was one occasion where he was by himself walking through the park. And then I had a separate occasion after his happened where both times we were disoriented into being like, I don't know where I am in this park. Like, and JT shaking his head, he just walked off camera. But it was kind of this feeling of like, I don't know where north is. I don't know where south is. And Forsyth is not that type of space.
Not at all.
It was so bizarre. And, the first time it happened to him, I was like, well, it was night. Maybe you just like forgot which way you came into the park or something. But still, you can usually orient yourself pretty easily because you can see the streets and stuff. But I had the same thing happen where I was like, it looked a lot more heavily forested. It felt like there were more animals. Like the owls were really loud that night for some reason, you know.
That's a classic time slip situation.
Exactly.
Where like you're walking and all of a sudden you're in a denser woods.
Right.
Or just the woods at all. Like you're walking down the street and all of a sudden you feel like you're surrounded by trees. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it would make sense for Forsyth specifically because that used to be all trees.
Yeah,
it was
absolutely.
a whole forest at one point before they turned it into what it is now. So I feel like you had a similar experience in that, and I would go more on that line of time slip, and you just kind of came out of it faster. Especially because Flint is really powerful,
Flint
too.
is very powerful.
You know?
It's fire starter.
Exactly.
And, you know, if you think on that Native American connection, there is lots of stories of the plane change and the, you know, of going through that. So, yeah, I'd be very interested, you know, to know more
if anybody else
of
is.
the region
Right.
and what specific indigenous beliefs there were. Because I know further west there are stories of the trickster god Coyote.
Oh, yes.
Doing things like that, leaving things for people to ensnare themselves.
Absolutely. Well, if anybody else has also experienced that on that trail, let us know.
Yeah. Or anywhere.
Or anywhere if you've had a similar experience, because it's weird. It's a weird feeling for sure. But thank you guys so much for sending in your ghost mail. We thoroughly enjoyed today's episode. I hope you did as well. But if you have a story you want to send in, you can send it to ghostmail@hauntedcitypodcast.com, as well as any, you know, Q&As, questions that you have, or anything else you want to share with us. Photos, videos, we love it all. So with that, though, my name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Soucy.
And stay spooky, y'all.